Hello, believers. How are you? This is a podcast where I speak to creative people about how they think, and what they think of the X-Files. I'm on a tram. Who'd have thought? Certainly not the residents of Edinburgh, that's for sure. Been a long time coming, but here it is. Like a lot of folk, I was initially quite a tram skeptic, but it's proven to be very popular. Lots of people going from the centre of town down to Leith and vice versa. Of course, the tram is old news if you're folk from Sheffield or Manchester, Always back and forth, aren't you, to Meadowhall and halfway or what have you, but thriving it is. I don't know. Train last week, tram this week. Never let it be said that I don't get you out and about on this podcast. On to today's episode, where I speak to civil servant, former advertising creative, educator, guitarist, dad of 5, and my former bandmate, Tom McCaskill-Baxter. A veritable Lazarus, you might say, which is good because that's exactly what X-Files episode we're going to be discussing later on, and Tom did a lot of research for it, so thank you, Tom. Originally from Guildford, Tom studied American Studies before winning a D&AD Young Creatives competition at an early stage for his work in advertising. He then went on to teach English and play guitar in the London punk band Pipes, great band, and he now lives and works in Manchester with his family, which includes triplets. Can you imagine? Tom talks about that and about juggling family and work responsibilities, his time on various wonderfully titled trade magazines, how advertising creatives work together. He talks about how to get a chest-ripping guitar sound on stage. Metallica we talk about. ISIS, that's the band, not the, what do they describe themselves as? Don't know. Not got time to get into it. Mark Snow dance tracks, and of course then we get on to chatting about X-Files Season 1, Episode 15, Lazarus. Really enjoyed catching up with Tom, and I'll try and dig out some old Pipes tracks. Probably, that's the name of the band, by the way, that we were in together. Probably just for my own enjoyment, if nothing else. As always, if you like the show, please do leave us a review. That really helps, and give us a star rating. I mean, this intro alone is 5 stars, isn't it? Drop us a line at bleedmepod@gmail.com and follow us on X and Instagram. Anyway, coming to the end of my tram journey here. Enough of me yakking for now. Without further ado, here's Tom. Does it get easier with more kids? Because I heard that's like a... Is that a myth?
I don't know, you might reach you get like a critical mass. I think the thing about our 5 kids is because we've got 3 of them are triplets. The 3 came at once. They're almost one kid, but obviously they're not because they're 3.
Yeah.
But they come at one time, and they kind of are like a self-contained unit. Like especially the twin girls.
Right.
They kind of help each other out. They don't get as much attention. They're in the mix where there's 2 older brothers anyway. So they're 4 now as well. So we got 4. We got 8, 6, and 4.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why?
3 4-year-olds.
It's just like, I remember you saying when you'd heard you were having 3.
Yeah.
And it was like, wasn't it that you knew you were having twins and then you got a bit of a surprise?
Yeah, it was like a couple of weeks later. They said, they did that thing where they go quiet on the scan, and you go, "Is everything all right? What's happening?" They go, "And everything's fine. We just think we can see another heartbeat in there." We sort of just started deliriously laughing, like, what's happening here? But then they said, it's quite a faint heartbeat, so it may be that there is another child in there, but they may not kind of make it as such. I always thought they would, and they did. So very glad for that.
Yeah,
very glad for that. Obviously, I mean, it's like crazy. Like it's an amazing thing. It's amazing that Kirsty had them in there, looked after them in that way, and that they're all happy. I think when they were born, it was more kind of relief more than anything, because it was really tough. Sort of pregnancy.
Yeah, I bet.
I mean, high risk.
Right. So what? I mean, is that? That must be incredibly rare. Is it? What?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because we didn't have like IVF or anything,
Mm.
so which is more it's more likely to have multiples if you put eggs in artificially, because you kind of double up the eggs or triple up the eggs or whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's I think it's something like 1 in 10,000, which to me doesn't actually sound that rare. But then have I met 10,000 people in my life? I don't know. Like I've never really met someone who's got triplets. I
Yeah.
don't think.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
yeah, and again, I don't know how many people I've met in my life. It's a hard number to
Yeah, I'm
quantify.
literally like when I started this podcast, it was like someone goes, there's like 218 episodes of the podcast. Sorry, 218 episodes of the X Files. I was like, I'm not sure I know 218 people. So it's like,
You could get there.
yeah, just about random people I bumped into on the street. But you're one of the first batch, so I'm pleased.
Oh,
I'm
cool.
pleased.
Oh no, that's
Yeah.
great. I haven't actually listened to the other ones, but I will do. I just wanted to do this one and then sort of see how I fit in. I probably whether I end up listening to this one or not, it's like that thing about listening to your own voice. But I will give it a go. I listen to podcasts a lot generally,
Oh
so
right. Oh great.
but I've
Yeah.
never been a guest. Never been a guest on
Well,
one, so
you
that's
you
nice.
you were very welcome. And so, what are you up to work-wise at the minute? Then you're now a civil servant, is that right?
So I work at the Department for Transport,
Oh
um,
right.
and yeah, I kind of left teaching in the tail end of the pandemic. So it was in sort of May 2021 where I started applying for jobs,
Mm.
and I wanted to move in civil service. And the pandemic with 5 kids was, yeah, it was tough obviously at times, but then at other times we had a lot of time together as a family, so it was quite good, especially when the babies were, the trip was very young. That
Yeah.
was good.
Yeah.
I started to see that working from home has a lot of benefits. Not that I work from home all the time, but I work from home a fair bit, and flexibility. And so, yeah, I just thought like, what can I do? Yeah, I wasn't particularly happy with where I was work-wise,
Oh
so I
right.
just thought I'll just make a shift.
How come you weren't happy there?
I mean, there's quite a few reasons, but I think the longer you are in education, the less, and the more you climb up the ladder, the less kind of face-to-face sort of, yeah. And there's good sides and bad sides of teaching, but it's like certainly like engaging most of the time. But yeah, you don't do as much of that, and you're more managing teachers, so it becomes more of a sort of generic-y management role in some ways.
Right.
But there's like teaching and learning stuff going on as well. The college I was in, yeah, they were going in a different direction because I was into A levels. They were going into a more vocational direction, which is fine, and that's what they're set up to do. But we didn't. It wasn't an easy fit, A levels, the kind of academic side of things. So it didn't
Right.
fit easily. And there was the pandemic, and it felt like there was like a direction of travel with the college was taking,
Yeah.
direction of travel my life was taking. I thought like I need to try something different, basically. Done it once before anyway.
Yeah, because you were so you were like basically God, the guy's name has just totally gone from my head. You were basically
You're
Don
gonna,
Draper.
right, I thought you were going to say Nathan Barley.
God no.
I'll take Don
No,
Draper. Yeah, that's cool.
that's how I always saw you. Yeah.
The Mad Men. Yeah, so I did. So yeah, after university, I worked sort of broadly in the media. I got a job at a pharmaceutical trade magazine, which was super exciting, called
Yes. Yeah.
Manufacturing Chemist, with its
Lovely stuff.
sister publication, Clean Room Technology. Not sure if that's
Love it.
not sure if that's still available. But
I absolutely love those sorts of trade
yeah,
publications. It's
it's like
brilliant. Fly fishing
it's like the
monster.
Have I Got News for You type sort of
Yeah.
guest publication. So I did that, and that was more just like a first job. And then I applied for this graduate scheme at this ad agency called Ogilvy and Mather, which is quite a big one, and had to jump through various hoops to do that as an assessment day. You had to do a presentation. I remember I did that you had to choose an object that sort of defines you and present it in front of like a big board of people.
Oh, right. And what did you do?
I chose a vintage camera.
Yes,
And I
of
think
course.
I talked about things like perspective and framing things, and yeah, it was quite earnest, to be honest. But I think it went down
Lovely.
fairly well. Another guy did one about, he had a picture of his cat,
Right.
and then he started talking about how it means a lot to him, but his cat's got cancer. And I don't know whether I was just in a funny mood, but I didn't start.
Burst out
I
laughing.
didn't start laughing, but I thought like there was a period where I was like, "Is this?" Because he was sort of had that slight look as I was like, "Is this all a joke?" Because I didn't actually know at that point. Do cats actually get cancer. Like what's going on? So
Yeah.
I didn't obviously laugh because I probably wouldn't have got the job if I'd like shown sort of like complete lack of empathy for somebody. But yeah, it's funny thinking about that time. Yeah, and that was it was in Canary Wharf. It was a very swanky office. There's a bar on site.
Right.
Friday at four
Right.
o'clock, the drinks trolley came round. It was,
Yes.
and there's lots of interesting people that worked in it.
So when did that sort of come to an end then? And what was the sort of thought process of that? Were you just like, were you not feeling satisfied in what you were doing?
That's interesting. So I suppose looking back, I think at the time it was on this graduate program, and you had different placements. And as a side thing to that, I started to realise that if I was going to work in advertising, I would want to be on the creative side, so where you're kind of in a partnership. I would be the copywriter because I'm not very good at drawing, and usually have an art director that you work with.
Right.
And someone on the previous year's graduate sort of intake, a girl called Liz, we kind of struck it off, and we kind of formed that partnership, and we did a competition outside of work with other ad budding creatives, like a young blood competition. I think that the company's called D&AD, and I'm not sure what that stands for. But we did that.
Yeah, don't they do? Yeah, they do. Is that the awards you took? Because I know they do awards, don't
So
they?
we
Right.
did that as a side thing, and it went really well. Yeah, we kind of won that, and I can't. You basically every week you got a different brief. You went to different ad agencies. You got a different brief, and then the kind of higher up creatives there sort of judged what you came up with the week after. Had a slight
Right.
sort of Dragon's Den element to it. But yeah, we did really well in that, and so I was like, well, if I am going to do it, it will be this. But then I had
Yeah.
this nagging thing, and there was an excitement in kind of like the blank page. Let's come up with an idea. It's always product
Mm.
related. It's always obviously like commercial, and maybe that was one of the things that in the longer term I wasn't as fully committed to. I was looking longer term and thinking I really enjoyed my degree, and I did a degree in American studies. I really like things like literature and
Mm.
sort of history and cultural studies and all that sort of thing. And I thought, well, I'm not really using this now, and I don't know whether I can longer term get as excited or get as up for it to be in Adland for
Yes.
the whole
Right.
time. I can remember I called my dad about it, and I said, "Oh, it's fun and everything, but it's all a bit like like meaningless." And like, what was this for and stuff. And he was a bit
Sure.
like, "Yeah, I did tell you that." I said, "Okay, yeah,
Thanks,
yeah, yeah,
Dad.
yeah." He's a journalist. Like he worked for Financial Times for a long time, so he's kind of he's not exactly like on the side of advertisers, if you know what I mean. Like they're kind of like
Yes.
the
Right.
enemy. Although actually they did pay his wages, so maybe think about it. Think about that.
Yes.
But so yeah, so and then which meant that I thought, well, I want to go back to education, so I retrained as a teacher. What that meant was that yeah, like the kind of the sort of creative partnership thing that I'd got in place with Liz had to end basically because I chose a different
Yeah.
direction, and it was really like I felt bad because you kind of come as a pair when you do things like that,
Mm.
and she had wanted to take it through, and we basically got offered a job which would have meant I would have left the graduate scheme and we would have gone into it, but it would have been kind of a very internship type job, and I didn't feel like there was much security in it. I suppose I wasn't that up for doing it. If I was, then I would have done it. So
Yeah. And what is the kind of route then with that sort of? Do you essentially stay in that partnership for your create sort of your life? Do you?
I think yeah. Well, I don't know about life, but I
Right.
think it seems like that's kind of how it works. It's quite a sort of yeah. It's quite a like what's the word? It's quite a prescriptive route in some ways. I'm sure now, like not 20 years on, but about 16 years on or so. I'm sure now it's quite different, and I think there's a slight disconnect between the way that the general public engages with advertising and how it's actually conducted behind the scenes. The kind of artistic merits of it are obviously much more important to the people that are doing it than the people that receive it, I suppose. And then you've got like the commercial imperative of selling stuff. I don't know. I guess it must work, but
Yeah, that sort of disconnect between art and how do you like monetize art?
yeah,
And does it make what you do as an advertiser a lesser thing if it doesn't actually translate to people buying, I don't know, tungsten tea cakes or
Yeah,
something.
that's the
Yeah.
thing, and I think I sort of realised that I liked this sort of creative process of coming up with ideas, and when you kind of get something that clicks, it's really exciting. But didn't know whether like when if it was like you've got to do a pitch for a fabric conditioner and you've got to stay up till 4 a.m. to do it. I just don't think I wouldn't have been up
Right.
for it. I think, and I kind of realised that. So yeah, I decided to retrain. The only kind of subject that I would have thought I was kind of qualified to do, I suppose I could have done maybe. No, I couldn't have done sociology because I didn't have a social science degree. So yes, I thought English, like I always liked reading literature, and kind of went down that direction. And I always had an aim to do that with, like to work in a sixth form. I felt like that was my age, like that was my time when, as a young me, I kind of felt like that's when I made friends that are now lasting friends and still some of my best mates,
Yeah.
and kind
Yeah.
of carried that through university. That sort of 16 to 18-year-old period is like a really exciting time in people's lives, and they kind of you get to hone in on things that you're really interested in, I suppose. And then if you do decide to go to university, that's where you take that bit further. So I thought that was my aim. So kind of like sixth form college. So I retrained at University of Roehampton. So I stayed in London but retrained, and you had to do placements in various schools as part of that. So I didn't go straight into sixth form college. It was in schools.
Right.
The first one was in a Catholic girls' school, St Philomena's in Carshalton. Uh,
Wonderful name.
Yeah, yeah, and actually, I was on a work trip a year or so ago. It happened to be in the area, but I didn't really clock it, and I just walked past. I was like, "Oh, cry!" Like 12 years ago, I taught there. It was really weird, like sort of seeing it and remembering it.
God, time flies, doesn't it? Time
It
absolutely
is weird,
flies.
and I've got like a very specific memory of that school going in there. It was a snow. It was supposed to be a snow day, but it was snow. It was really snowy, but it wasn't. It was open. I was like, oh god damn it. Okay, so we went in, and I used to listen on the way on the bus there. I used to listen to whatever music I'd downloaded. I was
Yeah.
listening to that band ISIS.
Oh yeah, I had them on the other day. Actually, it's sort of like I guess you describe it as post metal.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
yeah. So like I have to describe it. People who don't know, it's like if you're into post rock, so that's like Mogwai, but it's a
uh-huh.
bit more heavy. It's very riffy, isn't
It's
it? Very
riffy, like
riffy.
chunky wall of sound riffs, and sort of
Yeah.
just like screaming over the top, but it's not screaming that's too hard on the ears, but like not one that you'd play to
Yeah.
not one for a dinner party. But there's this song called Threshold of Transformation, and it's got these kind of quiet moments that sound a bit like they could be in the Born Identity or something like that.
Right.
And it
Nice.
had this sort of like epic tone. I was like walking through the school grounds, which were quite kind of like fancy in the snow, listening to
Yeah.
that song, and I thought there was a beauty in that, but there was also then when the heavy bit came in, that like kind of real disconnect that this music is very different to this environment that I'm walking into. It's funny how you get like
Wonderful.
music
Yeah.
that sort of like kind of punctuates different moments in your life, or you very specific memories, but you can't really remember anything about some stuff in life.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean that's partly why I sort of moved on to listening to more metal actually, because the kind of I guess when I was at uni and growing up, I was very indie.
yeah,
You know, listening to a lot of indie stuff, and I just not that I had a bad time growing up, but you kind of associate that with a certain point in your life, and as this podcast shows, I like a bit of nostalgia,
yeah,
but
sure. Yeah, I kind of went. Well, I still, I suppose, kind of am indie, but it sort of sixth form wise, that's when I transitioned in sixth form from being like a metal type kid,
yeah,
not full on Marilyn Manson, though I had friends who were,
yeah,
did that sort of look. I was more of a kind of
yeah,
skater type look.
right, got
I
it.
had like so my when I had money to get a guitar, I got like a Les Paul Gothic guitar, so it was like a matte black, with which
Superb,
was
yeah.
pretty. And I was really into Metallica, and I still am. Like Metallica are an incredible band, but
Yeah.
I never left.
Did you get the Spotify Wrapped? Because that was hilarious. It was just literally, I've been listening to the same thing for the last 10
It's
years.
not given me the raps yet, but yeah, I think yeah, I'd be interested to see what it says. It's sort of influenced by my kids' music now as well, or things that I've tried to influence with them. But yeah, then
Yeah.
when like halfway through sixth form, I guess yeah, 2001. So the Strokes, Is This It? And I was like, these guys are cool. these guys are super cool. I like their
Yeah,
music.
well, I had a funny thing at work the other day because I work with a lot of people who are considerably younger than I am, and a lad there came in and went, "Oh yeah, I'm really into this like band, they're sort of vintage sort of rock, aren't they?" And then
Oh
it
no.
transpired he was talking about the Strokes.
Oh God.
I was like, "Oh man, I remember buying that on route, sort of
Yeah.
buying that from somewhere in Chesterfield, you know."
So you
And
got a lot to you got a
put
lot
it
to
on.
learn. Yeah. Have you heard of television, my
God, to
friend?
bloody learn.
Yeah.
And yes, yeah. See in the footnotes, but
Leave a copy of Marquee Moon on his desk, and just say enjoy, or something like that. Yeah. So then I sold the Gothic Les Paul, got a 70s style Stratocaster, like reissue in the vein of Albert Hammond Jr.
yes,
And that kind of defined my look for a bit. Went into university, but I think I never left the kind of the sort of heavier music behind. And I've always been a fan of what they've got at the really heavy stuff. But because Queens of Stone Age, whatever, Machine Head, etc.
I can see how why you would like ISIS actually, because those riffs remind me of a lot of your guitar playing.
Yeah,
It's often quite. When we were in a band, it was, I don't know best to describe it, like minimalistic, but like
yes,
heavy at the same time. Because there's stuff on, I can't remember what the name of that. There's Oceanic, that ISIS album, where he's pulling a riff out with basically it's just one note, and it's like the heaviest thing you've heard.
there's a
really
kind of like
good
droning
stuff.
quality. Yeah, no, I was thinking I haven't listened to our band's output for a good while, but I can remember. It was sort of like what would you call it, like post hardcorey type, I suppose you would say.
Yes,
Yeah, and I've
yeah.
got a lot of
I
time for
remember
that
we
kind of
were all
music.
into like Refused, weren't we?
Yeah,
Refused
oh
is a
man,
big.
yeah. I saw them at
Yeah.
Rock am Ring. God, that's going back a while now, but that was
Now,
fantastic.
oh, good. I'm pleased you say that because I was a bit like, they were so punk and they were like, right, we're doing these couple of albums and then that's it, sticking it to the man. And then it was like, oh, actually, we're back and we need to pay the bills here, guys. I was like, which is fair,
Yeah,
as a dad
punks,
myself.
punks have got bills. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I'm glad they were. I'm glad they were good because I did have a bit of a twinge, in my.
I
In
went.
my
Yeah, I went to Rock am
health.
Ring. I think it must maybe 2012. I rings a bell, but yeah, it was where Metallica were playing. My friend Ed, who's
Oh
like a
yeah.
booking agent, he managed to get us in, and we had great passes. And there was this bit where we were kind of just like milling around. We were aware that Refuse were playing quite soon, but not that quickly. And then we heard like the riff for New Noise start, and we just
Oh
ran to the stage. We
yes.
just ran there, and like
Yeah.
Alice and Kirsty were sort of like. It's like you're just like two little kids running off to like go to the fun fair or something like slightly pathetic about it, but we loved it. That was a great festival actually. I shared a salad bar with Kirk Hammett. That was good. Yeah,
Well, that is one for the ages.
yeah.
Yeah, there was such a good this Spotify Wrapped thing. You get a video from your top listened
Oh
artists.
yeah.
So mine are like, I mean, I say I listen to metal a lot, but I really like this band called the Beths, who are like New Zealand sort of like poppy, nice stuff, really good lyrics, and they send you a nice message. But you get a message from Boy Genius saying thanks for listening to us, and everybody had made an effort apart from Metallica. It was like Kirk and who's the new? I can't remember the name of the new bassist, but like backstage, someone going thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks.
Come on, guys,
Whatever.
yeah, just keep paying the wages.
Well, that band's got history, hasn't it, with streaming services? Going back to
Yeah,
Napster. They
oh,
fought
yes.
the Napster battle. Like, do you remember Napster? Going back
Yes,
away there.
yeah. When you think back to the time when we were in a band together,
Yeah.
what do you first think about?
I think it was so much in East London. I feel so much about East London, like, or sort of
Mm.
that's where we were. So it's kind of obvious, it's a geographical thing, but it had that vibe. I think back to our first gig at the Old Blue Last. I think that was our first gig, wasn't it? In
Oh
fashionable
right, yes,
Shoreditch on Curtain
yeah,
Road or Curtain. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
right, yeah.
Which may or may not be still there. It was. I think it was at the time, and maybe still is owned by Vice. It's
Mm.
hard to avoid the Nathan Barley sort of like things in your head when you think about that. But
Yeah.
I remember that my amp blew up on like mid gig, and then I tried another amp and that stopped working as well. I think it might have been to do with my pedal. I think we kind of styled it out, but it was like it was going really well, but then the power went down and I couldn't crank out those riffs, so it sort of like fizzled out slightly. It's a bit like, oh, I was gutted because we invited lots of people to come and see it. But no, it was great. It was. I also just remember being because we sort of with the you put the ad out, didn't you, to find people, and then I responded. I don't know, was it like one of those ads in a in a coffee shop or something? I can't remember now.
I think it might have been in. I definitely put one in Rough Trade in East London.
Yeah.
And you might have seen that. And I think it was in the days where people were using Gumtree quite a lot.
Yes.
Probably one on that. But
God, I wonder if, it's something like that. It was one of those two. I remember being in your, we did like practice. It was in your bedroom. It had like quite red walls. It was like a smallest red room.
That's funny because I talked to Elisa, who I live with, Trixie, aka Trixie Malicious, the other day for this. And I was really slagging off that red bedroom. I was going, really. And then she was like, oh, yeah, I painted that. I was like, oh, man, sorry. But she was like, point taken. It probably would have been fairly oppressive to sleep in. And it was very, and I remember it really hot.
Yeah, it worked well for band practice. It worked quite well. But no, I remember it being exciting. I think, and sort of playing gigs in that sort of scene. I think it coincided with when I was sort of doing a career change, but I can't remember. I think I think it almost exactly did, and then coincided with me. Well, things kind of meant that the band kind of broke up anyway, didn't they? But I moved to. I mean, me moving to Manchester probably didn't help, but that was kind of a decision that was taken in around 2010, which is around the time my parents were splitting up as well. So it kind of there was sort of that going on, and then you were focusing on your comedy more. It sort of had to run its course, but it's interesting to think about if we'd have kind of like if I had stuck around, there might have kept going. Yeah,
I think you're right though. I think it's like it was a sort of not a flash in the pan sells it down, but it was a nice thing that lasted a short amount of time. And I funny you mentioned that Old Blue last gig. I remember like doing the sound check for that, and then the band we were on with, I want to say were Teeth or something.
That's a good shout.
They were like, oh, your MySpace does not do you guys justice. And I was like, oh, right, okay. Because they were like, oh, actually, you're pretty good.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because he was like, I actually thought you were shit, but, fair enough. Because I remember that you always used to, the tone on your guitar was very mid. And you used to talk about how Mastodon's guitars are mid, and that's what hits you in the chest when you go to the live show.
I think that's interesting, actually. Yeah, because I know that, like, if you listen to Machine Head and stuff, they do the scoop sound where they have, and I think that's what early thrash like Metallica did, where you cut out the mid and you just have full bass, full treble. But I think increasingly I've seen like some kind of reel about Kirk Hammett. He says that the mid is actually important, and I think that is a sound that I was definitely trying to get. I had this really cool pedal, which unfortunately was slightly unreliable, but it was based on some kind of Steve Albini pedal. But it did create a good sound. So you have a loud clean, like a really loud clean, because I had that really nice Fender amp, which I wish I hadn't got rid of. And then had the kind of dirty, but there's still enough kind of clean in it that you had like bite, I suppose you'd say.
Yeah. No, I always I always remember really liking the guitar tone, and then I think we sort of, the band did everything that in my mind a band should do. Played those sort of dirty gigs, and there was a great one also in East London. It was packed, and like Luke, who was the bassist and singer, his friend ran a label in Coventry and came and said something nice.
Now that was in a different pub, wasn't it? Because we played at 93 Feet East, but it wasn't that one. There was another pub that we played, and I thought that was our best one.
It was because it was like a proper old school boozer, East End boozer down a road. I'll have to find it.
I totally remember that. Or, well, I could have remembered. I've got that sort of hazy image of it.
It was great. It sounded really good. So we were doing those gigs, and then doing the recording with Rory from Testicles. That really enjoyed that, and seeing all these guitars that Fender just sent him.
It's pretty cool.
That was
I
good.
think we were quite
And
tight actually, weren't we? Like, if you know, because we recorded it live basically, didn't we? And then live we were kind
yeah,
of quite tight. I think we rehearsed. Oh yeah, thinking about it, I haven't thought about where we used to go to that rehearsal studio that was sort of around.
mm,
Was it like around the back of Old Street or something like that? That's sort of
that's
yeah,
right. Yeah,
the smart under the
yeah.
arches.
I was always dead keen to just do the songs and get off,
Yeah,
because I think I'd seen that band of Parkinsons come on and do or they might have been playing with 80s Matchbox Beeline Disaster at the time,
right.
and they just come on and do 12 minutes and then get off, and I was like, that's it, that's it.
Yeah, there's something cool. There's something cool about that.
Don't talk to anybody. Yeah, and I remember having a bit of a set to with Luke because he was doing some banter with the crowd,
Yeah,
but
no
it was
banter.
banter that didn't really go anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, no, cut the banter, Luke.
No,
But
that's interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think because we weren't mic'd up where we were. I'm not. I almost can't sing when I'm playing guitar. I don't think my brain works in that way where I can do those two things at the same
yeah.
time. But yeah, I wish I had more time now to play guitar. But I've got my oldest son into it.
Oh, great, that's good.
But
So you've laid out all the old records and you've got all the old shellac stuff out.
yeah,
Now,
not quite shellac, but yeah, I'm gonna bedding him in slowly. But I mean, he's very much into things like Queens of the Stone Age and.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I mean, and then my middle son, Gus, he's like a very gentle soul, but as soon as I played him The Wolf is Loose by Mastodon, he was just all over it. He loved it. And that's
Oh,
pretty, I mean, that's
yes.
pretty abrupt. That
Yeah.
abrupt is such such a formal way of describing it. What abrupt music. No,
No.
but like the way that starts, it's basically just like full on drum roll. It sounds like a
Yeah.
wolf is loose and chasing after you, and they've done that well. They've nailed it.
Yeah, well done, lads.
And then I say, well, if you
Uh,
like that, if you want it to be heavier, then let's give you some Machine Head and kind of go from there.
yeah, come and see your dad. That's nice. It's nice that it's.
But they like that, so they
It's
say
sort of
that this
carried
isn't
on.
heavy. If you play them rock, they're like, well, this isn't heavy, so it's not really rock, is it? That sort of thing.
Yes, yeah. I took issue with Elsa, my partner, was saying, "Oh, Michael Fassbender's really into metal,"
Right.
and I was like, "Oh, what's he into?" And she says, "Oh, he's into this one." This was him saying he was metal, not her. She goes, "Oh, he's really into like Guns N' Roses." And I was
Oh,
like,
right.
"No,
Yeah,
no,
it's
no,
not the
no.
same.
So you're talking hard rock. Yeah, that's what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
that's
But which is fine. I love Guns N'
yeah,
Roses,
yeah.
but don't make out you're a sort of Conjurer or you're a Converge fan.
Yeah. No, yeah,
You know what
exactly.
I
It
mean?
converges. Wow. Yeah, I think there's a lot of nostalgia in music. I met I met the guy from Wheatus again the other day. He's the
All
sort of
right.
because he
What do you mean by again? Have you
my
met him before?
well yeah. So my friend Ed that I mentioned, he manages their booking, and
Right.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So they did a gig in Manchester, and I went backstage with Brendan from Wheatus. It was fun. I mean,
Superb.
they still draw a good crowd. Um,
I bet. Yeah.
and they did like a 47-date UK tour
Oh
in
my God.
quite small venues, some bigger, but Teenage Dirtbag. I mean, it's a song for the ages, isn't it? You can't
Exactly.
take that away
Yeah.
from them. You really can't. Uh,
Many have
they
tried,
have they
but
have gone for a Christmas Dirtbag single, as far as I'm aware, for this
oh,
Christmas,
really?
which I'm not going to recommend to you, but I would recommend that you listen to it. But more out of
Okay.
curiosity than anything else. It's quite fun.
Gonna
But yeah,
make a note
nostalgia. I've got
about
a lot
that.
of time for music, like Blink 182. There's some sort of the kind of feeling that music gives me. It reminds me of being a
Yeah.
teenager and aspiring to be kind of like Californian. I've always been a bit of a geek about America.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that helps with the X-Files in a way.
It
Were
does.
you able to bring some of your?
Segway.
Thank you. I pride myself on that. What did you think when you watched this? And did you were you a fan of it growing up?
Yeah, I must have been because I only remembered it this morning. But I bought the theme tune on single, the Mark Snow
Yes.
theme tune.
Yes. Brilliant.
I had the CD single at a black cover. I've just looked it up. I've just looked at it, found it on eBay, and it had two mixes of the theme tune as well. One was
Yes.
called the
Yes.
terrestrial mix, which has sort of like it sounds a bit similar, but then about 40 seconds in, it sort of just goes into kind of like a banging sort of 90s ish, isn't it one? And
Lovely.
then the other mix, It was a bit more like breakbeat, like tricky, but it had lead guitar. But yeah, no,
Wow.
it's an incredible theme tune. Like wow, and the music throughout it is it never really stops playing synths, does it? Throughout the whole, like in this particular episode,
No.
I think that's probably what it's like for most of the episodes. But yeah,
Yeah, I think you're right. It's very hard to disassociate that soundtrack with the soundtrack to Garth Marenghi's Dark Place now,
right,
which is very similar, in sort of. I don't. What really stands out is those like plucked strings, which indicate something creepy.
yeah. I know. Yeah, I won't try and make the sound, but I know exactly the sound you mean. That kind of it's like this is the creepy bit sound. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
something's
I think the
coming.
kind
But
of the sort of it's like this bed of synth. I wonder if that's a bit of inspired by like Twin Peaks and that kind of stuff. I can't remember what
yeah,
is he called? Badalimenti. Yeah, I can't remember the yeah.
yeah, Angelo Badalamenti.
That's the one. But no, I did enjoy it. I had not watched X-Files for a long time. Like I think since it came out, yeah, it was something. It had like a charm to it. I think I enjoyed looking at it again. I've got notes on it, Chris.
Yes. Oh my God! Please. Well, let's hang on. Let's tee it up. So this is season 1, episode 15. We're talking about entitled Lazarus, and the general concept of the episode is that an old partner of Scully's gets wounded in this bank robbery, and then he has been possessed by this bank robber's spirit. And there's a great opening. I mean, they always do really well with the openings. And this one, you get a heist. I mean, it's not Michael Mann levels of heist, but it's great. You get Scully and the partner in the bank. You come to realise later in the episode is they were romantically linked, and that raises Mulder's eyebrows. And then as they're trying to resuscitate the partner who gets shot in the hospital, you see that the dead body of the bank robber at the back is also reacting to medical impetus of being shocked by those heart, whatever the heart business thing that they do to defibrillator is the word I was searching for. So it's a nice opening, and you get kind of Scully fighting for this man to survive, even though she as a medical doctor would have pulled the plug like about 15 minutes before, and she comes out with all this jargon like give him another 50 cc's of intracarline or whatever, and it's like okay, she sells it well though. Gillian sells it very well about a lot of it, but it's a good opening. But I mean, so what were your kind of thoughts going into it then?
Like you said, and I think I have to watch other ones, but it starts like in the thick of the action, like we're straight into a heist. It starts. There's a Ponzi Latin term that I used to use in English literature. It starts in media res, like it starts in the middle of the action, like it doesn't.
This is why you're on this podcast, Tom, because you really elevate and a level of intellect.
And I enjoyed how the kind of the Bonnie and Clyde-esque vibe of the two sort of the bad guys, the robbers, with their kind of like doomed love affair. What did he say? Like, you make me feel like it's New Year's Eve every day or something like that. There's like very quick, so they immediately do very quick character exposition where these are the two characters. They're desperately in love, but they're bad people. They're nasty people and about to do something bad. And then you get inside the bank, and then having watched it back more than once, you see there's a little, Willis, the agent who's kind of been tracking them, and Scully are there, and they're kind of saying, she's saying, "Are you sure this is a good idea? And are you sure they're going to come?" And he's like, "Yes, I know. I'm inside their heads." And Scully says, "Just, and Scully says, just as long as you keep yours." So it's like prescient of what's going to happen next.
Lovely.
And of course, in a way, he does. Does he get inside their heads? So he's too far inside their heads, I suppose. And then his consciousness goes because when he dies or when he's wounded, he kind of swaps. It's a body swap type thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of I mean, the actor playing Willis does really well because he has to pull off a kind of John Woo's Face Off.
Yeah, exactly. It did make me think of Face Off. Yeah, and that's no bad thing.
Yeah, and this, I mean, I've not seen this actor in a lot of stuff, and they do cast some great people in X-Files because, like you say, a lot of the dialogue is pretty on the nose, so you've got to have a decent cast to sell it. So this guy,
that's a good point. Yeah.
So this guy he's in William Friedkin's To Live and Die in LA, which is a great film, and then he was also, and this is a nice link back to yourself, he played Pete Campbell's dad in Mad Men. During season 1.
Yes,
so,
I thought I recognised him.
Yeah, so that's the next podcast to get onto when I got through 218 episodes of this.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, Mad Men. most episodes of Mad Men end with Don Draper sipping a scotch and like gazing off into the middle distance, indifferent to his existence.
Yeah, what he's been up to. But
that's the vibe, isn't it?
I like. It's nice you mentioned the romance, the between the bank robbers as well, because I love that Scully describes their romance, because I think the woman bank robber, the partner, was the male bank robber's prison officer or something like that, right?
Yes, I don't think I fully picked up on that, but I like that backstory.
They met in prison, and Scully describes their romance as torrid. And I was like, this is so good. And it's like they do it occasionally in the X-Files where they just reveal themselves to be quite conservative. Like,
On the love affair thing, they had that quite a few things that amused me. Like, when Willis he's incapacitated, or his body's there, but his mind is not. But she finds his field notes. Mulder's going through his field notes, and they're these tapes, and all they say on them is Willis's field notes, and each one just says the same thing, Willis's field notes. So there's no like orderings to that, but it's like it's just like, just in case you didn't know what you're listening to, like these are his field notes. But there's a bit it plays where it says something like, their love was almost operatic in nature. They couldn't live without each other. In some ways, I almost envied it. That sort of thing. Like, sort of the fact that maybe Willis is in too deep with this couple, and how true does that turn out to be at the end of the day?
That's great.
And it says morgue, like the way when you're very clearly in a morgue, but they have to show the door that says morgue on it before it opens. Like most people who watch dramas are familiar with, like, if there's a body on a what do you call it, on a stretch or whatever. Yeah. It's a morgue.
Yeah, it's superb.
I think it's the kind of sometimes it's the tell not show approach, which is kind of quite charming, but they're sort of like, the dialogue doesn't leave much room for ambiguity sometimes, which is funny for a program which is about what you may or may not accept as true and all those kind of things.
I like how Mulder, I feel, is really stretching in this, really stretching credibility. Yeah. Because he's very... It's not like this whole thing about, Willis is actually left-handed, but he's signing stuff with his right hand. And it's immediately like Mulder going, that obviously means he's been possessed by the spirit of a dead bank. Not he's got a brain injury from being shot multiple times.
He makes that leap, and then they find that scientist guy to kind of like talk it through. Don't they? There's a sort of scene.
Superb.
Yeah, and I wonder, like, I'm not saying this is based in science, but I'm wondering if there was any kind of, have they done a bit of, I was going to say Googling. Was there Google? But they've done some kind of, there's some kind of theories out there that this probably corresponds to, this idea that, maybe this sort of thing could be possible. I suppose it's the setup between Scully and Mulder, which that Scully is the empirical doctor. Yeah. Mulder is more suggestible, supernatural. But interestingly, I don't think I quite appreciated how wooden David Duchovny's acting is until I
No, you're right.
But in a way, it kind of meant to be sort of the way, it's almost emotionless, but maybe that's what they're trying to show. Maybe that's Mulder's vibe. It particularly comes in towards the end of the episode, but we'll get there.
Yeah, like he's playing it almost as if he's on the autism spectrum or something.
Yes, that might be what he's potentially going for.
Because the thing, we're just reading up about the episode beforehand, it was, the original plot was going to be that the dead bank robber's soul was going to have jumped into Mulder's body.
Okay, yeah.
Which would have been interesting, but then I think there was something from on high within Fox which said, we can't ever really have Scully or Mulder like directly experiencing something like that.
Yeah, and I think some of the sort of side characters are quite the police chief, the guy with the moustache, who's sort of he was there. The bank robber comes back as in Willis's body. He goes to, is it his partner's brother or something like that, and he says that you ratted me out basically, and then he kills him, and then the guy goes, the police chief comes back afterwards and say, oh, what's he look like? And he says, oh, there's not a lot of family resemblance left between the rats and the 45 he took in the face.
Oh, yeah.
There's that kind of, I love that kind of sort of gritty. I've seen death before, and I've seen it again.
And then he pops a mint in his mouth.
Yeah.
All in a day's work for me. This is, I did feel as though the kind of sort of plot point about Willis being diabetic should have been put in earlier. That should have been the first thing. He's in the bank. He's you see his EpiPen or something like that. It's like that. He's set it up a bit earlier. If you ask me.
That's the sort of way they would have done it, isn't it? Like they would have seen he'd have left some pill or something, like left his EpiPen, and then it would have like
Chekhov's EpiPen.
Yeah, a bit like how it hovers over the tattoo, so you know that's going to be significant. Like you don't hover, but it was quite. And then when he finds his lover Lula, and that can, I think it's Mulder said before, Willis isn't Willis, and then he finds lover Lula, and she thinks this is strange. What's going on? Are you this? And he kind of comes up with those kind of like, how do you know it's me? Like prove it's me, and it does, and then. The thing I wrote down is he says to her, "It won't make any difference in the dark," and he's talking about their their nights of torrid wild passion.
Definitely torrid, isn't it?
No difference in the dark. There's something quite sinister about that, to be honest. But
that's
made me chuckle.
Good. Yeah, it's well directed. It's there's a regular X-Files director, David Nutter, who's
right.
I mean, he's like a legendary TV
that rings a bell. Yeah, he's a good guy
now. But this was like the variable X-Files episodes, and I mean, I felt it did move at quite a clip. And it kind of nicely shot. They're always nicely shot. You've got that kind of Freddy Krueger's red boiler room at one point where they have to go into. Scully finds herself tracking somebody. So that was nice, and they do well to keep the special effects down.
I was thinking that actually. I think like budget-wise, it's probably not that crazy because I know there's other episodes where there's more effects, but I think this was there's not really any in this, was there? It was sort of maybe a bit of work on the tattoo, but I think that's probably fairly straightforward. Yeah, I think the way that they find the location of Dupre, the robber, and his lover, because they kidnapped Scully, is a bit questionable. Where they on tape they've got the kind of negotiation, the hostage negotiation, and Mulder hears a tiny bit of a plane in the background, and then there's quite a prolonged scene, probably too long, where the kind of the nerd guy looks through the recording with what looks like basically a 4-track recorder and replays it and then goes, let's change the frequency. It's one of those things where in loads of cop shows there's always that bit where the main protagonist sort of goes, hang on, look a bit closer at that, let's have that again. And obviously he was on something, and then they very quickly narrow down the area to sort of like a sort of square kilometre, and then he says we've got 100 officers who can go and search.
Mad.
Look at these resources. When? Like how we've got 100 officers. That'll take us about 3 hours if we go through every house. I mean,
I'm always kind of again something I should look into. But what is the extent of the FBI's jurisdiction? Can they pull rank like that? Can they just rock up and go, right, I need 100 officers? And I'm not sure that they can. I think they act more like a kind of. They act more separately. I don't think they would. Also, I don't think they would ever really walk around a crime scene like that. They're more like in the sort of shadows, aren't they? Yeah. But then but obviously that's not going to work for a
there's that
mainstream TV show.
This kind of search scene, isn't there? There's that. I quite liked Mulder's briefing to the agents where he sort of says make some joke about, and if you understand ninth grade maths, you'll understand that this is how long it's going to take to do this, and and then he sort of says at the end in a way that makes it sound like he doesn't care about it at all. He's like, "This means a lot to me. This one. Let's do this right.
Yeah.
Let's do this right." Sort of.
Yeah, almost like every other case.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit about because they're just normal people. But this is,
Yeah.
this is someone I know. So come on.
Yeah. Just on the at the end, I thought was funny where, so it's all done, and Willis is dead, Dupre's dead, and Scully hands her the watch that she gave Willis as a gift on his 35th birthday, and she's got to go and break the news to, I think, either his younger brother or one of his children who's dead, and she says, "Oh, what am I supposed to tell him?" And she goes, "What am I supposed to tell myself?" And Mulder just goes, "Good night." And then she's like, "Look at the time. It's the same time as." And then Mulder goes, "What? When he died?" And she's like, "Yeah." "What does it mean?" And he's like, "It means whatever you want it to mean. Good night."
Yeah.
And he just says good night again, and then it fades to black. It's almost it's quite a funny sort of denouement. It's quite like unexpected. It's not actually all tied up.
Profound, isn't it? And it's like,
means whatever you want it to mean.
Do you think you'll watch some more then after this sparked your interest in it a bit more?
I think I will actually. I watched it on Disney Plus, which is good because there's no like ads or anything like that. And they're all there.
And just lastly, before we wrap up, is anything you've seen recently that you've really liked or heard recently? It could be anything, like art, music, film, anything like that.
Oh God, I don't know. I'm going to see Hamilton tomorrow night, which I know is not exactly earth-shattering in terms of Hamilton is good, but I've not seen it live, so I'm excited about seeing that.
Well, also you probably know the intricacies of the American political system like no one else.
Yeah, I know a bit about that. So no, I'm excited about that. And I think one thing that I do that I really enjoy is I've got this thing called Album Club where it's with a couple of ex-colleagues and then sort of friends of friends, and it's like a book club but with albums. So every month or so we meet and select an album each, then we listen to it, talk about it. So that's meant that I've got to listen to lots of new music, and they've all got different tastes. So you get to listen to things that you wouldn't normally do. It's been going for like the best part of 3 years now. I think we started it sort of in, I don't know, whatever it's called, wave 2 of the pandemic or something. Something like that.
Do you get to listen together as well then?
There's
when you meet up, or
kind of
discuss it?
It's more we discuss it, but we do every year. We kind of meet in person for a kind of. So we went to Birmingham a couple of weeks back and kind of. It's a good thing. It's like it's nice to have a sort of a place to talk about, I don't know, things that are artistic or music-y, where that's really the only thing that you're talking about or thinking about. Certainly during lockdown, it became like a real positive thing, to be able to do that, like a sort of an outlet to think about stuff outside your day to day.
Yeah, I mean, do you get much time? That's probably a silly question, but do you find your mind's just totally busy with the children and work and that, and do you get much time to sort of decompress?
No, and I sort of think about that the other day. There's not much time to like reflect, I suppose, in life, and it goes quickly. So I want to try and take more time to do that. But yeah, there's always at least one child who wants your attention. So and sometimes up to 5. So yeah, you've got to balance that. And it is hard, but it's rewarding at the same time. But yeah, I think turning 40 next week, there'll be a bit of me time involved in that, which will be good. Yeah.
Yeah, I did it. I did that 2 weeks ago.
You did it.
And, past that.
Oh, we're very close. We're very close in age, aren't we? There you go.
Yeah. And I think this whole podcast is me trying to avoid a midlife crisis, and it's working. It's interesting you talking about the album club, because I think there is a lot to that. To have something that's just your own and that you can totally not selfishly, but just think through and think in a different way to how you normally think.
Yeah,
which is
whatever
really
works. And the other thing that I've done for a while is playing sort of social football, which I really enjoy. So
Right.
there's a kind of group of dads of varying ages. We do it every Wednesday night, and that's great too.
Yes.
And you
Love that.
meet people that you wouldn't always otherwise meet, and friends of friends. But it's if you go to the pub afterwards, you pretty much only talk about football after that as well. So yeah, it's sort of those
Nice.
things. It's
I bet they're dirty bastards on the pitch, aren't they?
some
those
of them are.
dads?
Some of them are. Yeah, certainly. Yeah, some people they kind of change. You know, they're just a different person. I like to think I'm not. I'm probably too polite. You know,
Yeah.
I'm going to be.
No,
If there's
you're
a
too skilled. You don't need to resort to that.
if there's a 50-50, I'm pulling out. You know, it's that kind of thing.
Believe Me is written and edited by me, Chris Boyd, with production support from Steve Marshall. The music is by Johnny Boyle, and our logo is by Russ Brown. See you out there next time.